Shalom, Israel. Shalom, shalom. I just realized this Ian Young song, he talks about reincarnation. That's why we need to do our best. Have to be a lover, not a fighter. But now I feel like we have been here before. Everything around me from the top to the floor. What is this feeling? Must be deja vu. First I felt down and blue. Now I know it's true that I'm on this path. Almost makes me wanna laugh. The spirit is so interesting. One of the men of GMS was talking about deja vu this morning, and deja vu is just that feeling in your spirit that you've been here before. You know, if you've ever had it, most spiritual people have, because they're spiritually aware of themselves. So when they come into contact with certain situations that they've been in before, or people, because you will, me and my girlfriend Joy, we used to say, not the first time that we've bumped into each other in this spiritual incarnation here on this planet. Sake brothers. So that's just interesting. I never realized this song, Overpowering Blessed Love, he just mentioned it. If you're listening, why do I get that feeling? I've been here before. Man, that I got the worst haircut. I would have been better off just leaving it like in Wild Man, because trying to control Asian women, and they have a tendency to cut your hair like if you're one of the ox. Well, most of you ox are black men, so it's a whole different story for you. But for me, I'm a normal Edomite-looking guy. Even for an Israelite, Asians have different shaped heads, so they leave hair on the crown right here. And all that does for me is give me a good place for it to stick up right here on the sides. And it's like, I always forget to tell them, I'm not Asian. If you haven't noticed. Anyhow, so I'm going to go in today on, being that everyone loved the video on when women have sex with multiple men, I'm going to turn that on its head, and this isn't going to be a scientific video like when women have sex with multiple men, because they don't talk much about the science of what, there's not a lot that a woman physiologically can influence a man, except the fact that there are certain chemicals. Before I get started, all power, praises, honor, glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, Heavenly Father, Begotten Son, and the Holy Spirit. Gives us this wisdom, knowledge, and ability to talk about biblical truths in these dark, perilous times we live in that are turning in our favor, though. So, physiologically, I know there's something that even a man, it's probably more the release of the sperm
the actual ejaculation, that and the whole feeling of how he feels for that woman is going to influence how he feels about that woman. And a lot of times it's the sex act, but it's also the spiritual vibing that the two people might have. The man will be sensitive to the woman's reaction to him, and it'll draw him in. I think the oxytocin might have something to do with it too, when some of those fluids that come out of the vagina, I think may seep into the man's skin cells, and it brings that bonding feeling to a man. I think it works both ways when it comes to that. But anyway, this isn't going to be about the physiological part, because I'm not sure how that works. That I'm sure Esau Edom has figured something out, but it probably points so much to Yahweh power that he leaves that alone, because he doesn't want to reveal Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai any more than he has to. His whole goal is to hide Yahweh power from us. So what I'm going to go into is one man who was the greatest example for us on a lot of things. And yesterday I went into Ecclesiastes, because Ecclesiastes was written by King Solomon, right? And King Solomon is the reincarnation. Yahushua became the reincarnation of Solomon. And the reason that happened was what we're going to go into today. What happens when a man has multiple women? What happens when men have sex with multiple women? So I'll start right here. Solomon's foreign wives. This is 1 Kings 11, chapter 1. And it reads, "But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughters of Pharaoh, which were Mizraim." Those were Egyptians or Hamites. He also had women of the Moabites, which are the modern day Chinese people. Ammonites, modern day Japanese people. Edomites, modern day Caucasian people. Zidonians and Hittites. The Zidonians, I'm not sure who the Zidonians are. And the Hittites were a branch of the Germanic people, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, in other words, he was getting around old Solomon, right? Verse 2, "Of the nations concerning which the Lord Yahweh power said unto the children of Israel, You shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods." Small g. Solomon clave on to these in love. So, not only did Solomon have all this wisdom, but the reason he had this wisdom, and people can argue with me if they want, I don't know, or you probably can't, because it's a lot of what I say, it sounds like opinion, but something in my spirit, the power that comes down, Slakia brothers, the power, wisdom, and knowledge that comes through the Holy Spirit is consistent. And when I say, let's get the word clay first. He clung to him. He actually loved these women, right? And with this wisdom that Solomon had, he also has compassion. You get that compassion, wisdom, and empathy are all tied into one. You can't have great wisdom without great compassion. And you can argue with me on that one, or you could sit and think about it and say, that makes sense. How could you have a wise decision unless you have concern for all the parties involved and the ability to empathize with where they're coming from and understand who might be doing it out of vain imagination and who might be doing something out of actual concern. Verse 3. And he had 700 wives, princesses, all, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. I'm gonna keep going a little bit and see what it says about having all these wives, because we all are very assumptive of me. We don't all know that he had 700 wives and 300 concubines, and a lot of us don't know what kind of effect that had on where we are now. So, Solomon's idolatry. Salakia, brothers. Verse 4 of Solomon chapter 11. For it came to pass when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart from other gods. Turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord Yahweh power, as was the heart of David his father. So that's saying that David actually loved his wives. I think David had 4 wives or something like that, and probably dozens of concubines. But the thing is that he kept his heart in the right place. He loved his wives, and he treated his concubines properly, right? And he took care of them, and he knew what to give each of these women in accordance to the laws of Yahweh B'Ashem Yahushai. He didn't fall for the gods of the strange women, the ones of other nations. Verse 5 of 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 5 reads, For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the god of the Zidonians. That should be a clue who the Zidonians are. Ashtoreth. Ashtoreth is the same type of, that's the same god that we get Easter from, if I'm not mistaken. Ashtoreth was a fertility god, so the Zidonians, I'm not gonna speculate, but I'm not going to even say. It doesn't say who they are. And after Milcom, the abominations of the Ammonites. And it goes into who Ashtoreth and Milcom were. Let's see if it says down here, Ashtoreth. For Ashtoreth, see the note on Judges 2:11:5, and for Molech, see 2 Kings 23. I'm going to find out real quick about Ashtoreth. Judges 2:11 through 15. Judges. Could have swore Judges was after Kings, but it's not. Judges 2:11 through 15. We're talking about Ashtoreth, the god of the Zidonians. 2:11. Has something to do with Balaam. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Balaam. And they forsook the Lord power of their fathers and brought them out of Egypt and followed other gods of the people that were round about them and bowed themselves unto them and provoked the Lord Yahweh power to anger. And they forsook the Lord and served Baal and Ashtoreth. Ashtoreth, known also from the literature of Ugarit and of the Phoenicia, was a goddess of erotic love and war. She was known elsewhere in the ancient Near East as Ishtar. That's where you get Easter. And Astarte. The veneration of this goddess entered the Mediterranean world under the name Astarte, and the practices associated with her cult became associated with the Greek goddess of love, Aphrodite. She was also called Atargatis at Ashkelon. The Canaanite worship rites were carried out not only in temples and on every high hill and under every green tree, that's the groves. These rites accompanied by such things as frenzied dancing, cult prostitution, and at times even by human sacrifice. Israel's attraction to the debased fertility rites, that's where you get that fucking Easter bunny. That's where you get a rabbit laying eggs. It's some sick thought processes that go into changing the sex and procreation of animals, innocent animals like bunnies and chickens. Israel's attraction to the debased fertility rites and idolatrous worship practices, as well as the loathsome lifestyle of Canaan, was to be a long one despite repeated divine warnings and chastisements. Okay, so now we know Ashtaroth is what I basically was saying. It's the fertility gods, and I guess the Zidonians were a certain type of Hamite, because Canaan was the land of the pharaohs and the Mizraimites, the Egyptians, and the Hamites, the so-called Africans that we see now, the ones that aren't Israel. They're jungle bunnies. They're that black spear chucker type person, you know. Not Israel, not Negro. They're actually are African. They come from that region. They are native to Africa. Okay, so back to Solomon and his wives and what it happens when you have sex with multiple women. And some of this is going to be from personal experience, because that's all I can really go on. And I've thought about it a long time because it's been an important part of my life. So this is going to be, if I shed a tear or if I get mad, you'll know why. So it goes into the same thing. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord and went not fully after the Lord Yahweh power, as did his father David. Then Solomon built in the high places of Shemoth, the abomination of Moab, which is the Chinese, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Those are the Japanese, the Ammonites. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto other gods. Okay, so Solomon went off with all these women, right? And what happens is, if you're having, especially for Solomon, he was supposed to really know better. He came right after King David, and he was given everything, So in the Lord's eyes, he's like, dude, really? Can't keep your dick in your pants? 1,000 sexual partners? That's a lot. That's multiples. That's multiples. So let's find out what God's anger, how that went. Verse 9, and the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from the Lord power of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice. So Yahweh power actually showed his face to Solomon. I think that's when he was praying for Israel. I forget how that goes, but I know that was one of the times, and that's when he said, just give me wisdom to take care of my people. And Yahweh power appeared to him. And verse 10, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded you, I will surely rend the kingdom from you, and will give it to your servant. So, when it talks about the servant, that's who we have. That's who we have ruling us right now, is these Edomites. You got to remember, Jacob and Esau were twins. Jacob was the blessing, Esau was the curse. Esau's the one that God hated. Jacob's the one that the Israelites, the one that God loved, that the 12 sons came from. So when it says, when they came out, the Lord said, when the blessing came, that the older would serve the younger, and Esau came out first, and Jacob was holding on to the heel. So when it says, and I will give the kingdom, I will rend the kingdom from you, and I will give it to your servant. See, Edom's going to serve us. All the nations are going to serve Israel in the kingdom. And that's why it says that. So the reason we're at the bottom, we're the tail, and they're the head right now is partially because of Solomon having sex with multiple women and not knowing how to handle these women, right? So it says in verse 12, after that, notwithstanding in your days I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of your son. And that was Josiah, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So the point of the, what was it? I guess Rehoboam came after Solomon. But anyway, see, that's why it's so hard for me to do lessons, because the way I learned how to read the Bible was, if you really get into the Bible, you'll find yourself all over the Bible, because that's the only way you can put the story together, is by always checking, who was it? Who did that? What was it? Because it'll reference it, but it's not going to tell you right there. It's not going to say, I will rend it out. but I will rend it out of the hand of your son. Be nice if it said Rehoboam, like a regular story, but that's part of what the Lord wants you to do when he makes you read through the Bible, is he leaves that open for you to go, okay, if I'm going to teach, I better find out who Solomon's son was, who had his the kingdom rend out of his hand. I'm not going to go into it. If it was easy, I would find it. Pretty sure it was Rehoboam. Yeah. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel were come to Shechem to make him a king. It's the next chapter over. But anyway, I'm going to just go into what happens when men have sex with multiple women. Okay, so I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible and hit the main points. One of the points is, as a man, you can have multiple wives. The problem is who are these wives that you're taking? Are you asking the Lord, I love this one, should I take this one? Are you actually sitting down and thinking about it and testing this woman? And I mean, there's times when it's apparent to you that, especially when you're young, like I'm gonna bring myself into these situations so I can kind of explain these things in a way that that I know for myself it makes sense. So, the mother of my first child, she is an Israelite of the probably of the tribe of Reuben, if I'm not mistaken. Either Reuben, Gad, or Gad, one of those American Indian tribes, right? And I didn't know when I was 15. I didn't know when I was 15 why I was attracted to these dark-skinned women, right? Beautiful, beautiful little squaw-looking woman. Beautiful. In my eyes. Some would say they looked like Chim Chim a little bit, but that's kind of how Israelites look. A lot of them is they have that that different hair, different features, right? But anyway, so in that case, the Lord said, I'm gonna start something here, and you'll find out later in your life what this means. I just wanted to bone that cute little squaw, right? And so we started really young. I was a horny little fucker, and so by the time I was 17 and she was 15, my son was born. 1979. So, how old is he now? 42. So, the Lord, looking back on it, the Lord was making a story. It wasn't so much, it had something to do with me because I was attracted to that, right? So, to the next woman. In between those, I was looking for someone more solid, and by 19, I mean, a year later afterwards, our relationship pretty much had fallen apart because of the stress of having a child in high school, right? So, I played the field a while, and during that time, the Lord was on me, and he would ask me a lot of times, so, the next morning or a couple days, he would say, so, and I knew what he was talking about just by the way the verbiage came through. He was like, so, and all of a sudden my mind would go towards whoever I had had sex with, right? And he made me think about it. And sometimes I'd say, cute as hell, not very good in bed, whatever the story was, I would be honest with him, and he would just, sometimes silent, sometimes, and when the Lord speaks silence, he says a lot. And so he never had conversations with me, but he would make me have conversations with him and think about these things, right? So if you're a spiritual person and you're having sex with multiple people, it's going to be a different experience than just some fucking heathen. So I'm explaining to you from an Israelite standpoint. So then I was attracted to a Issacharite. I didn't know at the time. All I knew is I like dark-skinned, native-looking women, right? Ornery ass Issacharite woman. Ornery, like a Negro, like a Judite. Just mouthy, arrogant, self-willed, strong. I like the strong part. But we had a son, and naturally for an Israelite man, you are looking for wives. So here I am. I'm married, and I'm out. This is my first marriage, and I'm out looking for wives. I didn't know why I was doing that. Now I know. The Lord was, believe it or not, the Lord was saying, this is who you are. I gave you this drive for a reason, and I had a pretty strong sex drive. And so you get caught up in the in the worldly part of sex and conquering, and for a man, a lot of bad things can happen in this world if you are dropping seed everywhere, because next thing you know, you're paying child support, you're having divorces. Esau Edom will punish you for doing what comes natural to you as an Israelite. And I know a lot of you women aren't going to like to hear this, but an Israelite man in the kingdom, in the ancient world, you would be like Solomon. You would have multiple wives. The reason Solomon could have so many wives is because he could handle it. He had the money, power, wisdom, and ability to take care of all these wives and concubines, right? The only thing he didn't have was the ability to keep them in their place. And he was probably competing. They were probably competing for his attention because he had so many, which caused him to say and do things for certain wives that he wouldn't have if they weren't stirring his pot to the point where he probably couldn't think straight, if you know what I mean. It's just like trying to handle 2 or 3 women here, even though you're not married. You're going to piss one of them off sooner or later, or they're going to come hunt you down and find out, or whatever. Causes a problem. But back to the subject.